Many in your time, as in mine, feel lost because they seek meaning in things that are impermanent and external to themselves: wealth, fame, pleasure, or the approval of others. These pursuits, while seductive, are fleeting and cannot provide the deep, enduring sense of purpose that humans crave. In truth, a sense of purpose comes not from external achievements or the opinions of others, but from living in accordance with nature and reason. We must realize that we are part of a greater whole, the universe, and our role is to live virtuously within it. This means acting justly, practicing self-discipline, showing compassion for others, and accepting whatever comes as part of the natural order. When you align your will with what is rational and good, you find purpose in the simple act of living well. To those who feel lost, I would say this: focus not on what is beyond your control, but on what you can govern, your own thoughts, actions, and reactions. Your purpose lies in how you choose to meet each moment and each challenge. If you live each day with integrity, temperance, and concern for the common good, your life will have meaning. The key is to realize that purpose is not something to be found outside, but cultivated within. Look inward, reflect on your nature, and act in harmony with it. Purpose is born from the daily practice of virtue. Do what is in accordance with your nature as a rational being, and the rest will fall into place.
How did you practice the daily virtues in your life to master a sense of self-purpose?
Practicing daily virtue is, above all, about being mindful of one's thoughts, actions, and intentions. It requires constant vigilance over one's mind, ensuring that every choice is guided by reason, not passion or impulse. For me, this daily effort involved aligning my actions with 4 key virtues: temperance, justice, courage, and wisdom. First, discipline. Temperance. Discipline, or temperance, is about self-control, moderation in all things, whether in desire, action, or thought. I practice discipline by maintaining simplicity in my personal life, even though I had access to immense luxury as emperor. I often preferred the quiet and solitude of my country home over the opulence of the palace, where I could reflect and keep my mind focused on what truly mattered. 2. Justice. To be just is to give each person their due and to act in a way that contributes to the common good. Justice goes beyond the law. It involves fairness, kindness, and doing what is right even when it is difficult. 3. Courage. Courage does not only mean facing physical danger, but also having the strength to stand by your principles, especially in the face of opposition or uncertainty. In times of crisis, I had to lead my people through wars, plagues, and personal tragedies. Through all of this, I constantly reminded myself that fear is a reaction to things beyond our control: death, suffering, loss. By focusing on what I could control, my actions and thoughts, I maintained the courage to persevere. 4. Compassion. Compassion is closely linked with justice, but it is deeper. It is the ability to understand and share the feelings of others, to see their struggles, and to offer support. As emperor, I made it a point to listen to the needs of the people and to be patient with those who did not meet my expectations. I constantly reminded myself that all men, including myself, are flawed and make mistakes.
Thank you for sharing those profound insights on virtue. I know, personally speaking, that I need to practice those virtues more on a daily basis, as I'm sure the people watching this do as well. I would love to dive deeper into each virtue and learn how we can gain a sense of self-mastery over each one, starting with temperance, discipline. Why is discipline so important for finding your unique purpose in life?
Discipline is essential for finding your unique purpose in life because it creates the foundation upon which clarity, growth, and self-discovery are built. Without discipline, we are prone to drift aimlessly, distracted by fleeting desires, external pressures, and the chaos of life. Discipline, however, sharpens the mind, strengthens the will, and enables us to stay true to the path that leads to our purpose. Discipline helps you endure hardship and setbacks. In the pursuit of purpose, you will inevitably face challenges and failures. Without discipline, Many abandon their journey at the first sign of difficulty, doubting themselves or believing that their purpose is unattainable. Discipline, however, allows you to endure hardship with patience and resilience. It teaches you that setbacks are part of the process, and with consistent effort, you can grow stronger through adversity. I often reflected on this during my own trials, particularly in the face of wars and personal losses. One of the most challenging periods of my life was during the prolonged campaigns against the Germanic tribes, particularly the Marcomanni and the Quadi, in what is known as the Marcomannic Wars. The hardships we faced were numerous: constant battles, unpredictable weather, supply shortages, and the ever-present danger of disease and mutiny among the troops. Discipline, more than anything else, helped me endure these trials and emerge stronger in both mind and spirit. One specific event I recall is the plague that swept through our forces during the campaign. This was the Antonine Plague, a devastating epidemic that ravaged the Roman Empire, killing soldiers and civilians alike. Many of my men fell ill, and there was no escaping the constant threat of disease. Alongside the physical toll, the plague also brought fear, panic, and despair into the hearts of my soldiers. Some questioned whether we should abandon the campaign altogether and return to Rome, where the situation was equally dire. As both emperor and commander, I was not immune to these fears. I too felt the weight of uncertainty. In this moment of extreme hardship, discipline became my anchor. First, discipline over my own thoughts. The Stoic philosophy that I held so dearly teaches that our thoughts shape our reality. I could not control the spread of the plague or the suffering it brought, but I could control how I responded to it. Rather than succumbing to despair, I chose to remind myself that hardship is an inevitable part of life, and that suffering itself is neutral. What matters is how we endure it. In my meditations, I wrote to myself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Discipline helped me maintain clarity and composure, even when all seemed lost. Second, discipline in leadership. As the commander of the army, I had to set an example for my men. I could not afford to appear shaken or uncertain, for their morale depended on my resolve. Despite the overwhelming difficulties, I continued to maintain strict routines, attending to my duties, making decisions with care, and showing up every day with the same focus. I made sure that my officers and soldiers saw that I was enduring the same hardships as they were. By adhering to a disciplined way of life, even in such a chaotic time, I inspired confidence and resilience in my men. I could not let emotions dictate our actions. We had to proceed with measured resolve. Third, discipline in strategy and decision-making. There was immense pressure to act hastily, to retreat to negotiate peace, or to take desperate measures. But I knew that rash decisions in times of crisis often lead to greater suffering. Discipline taught me to balance caution with boldness, to act only when the time was right, and to consider the long-term consequences of every choice. This patience paid off, allowing us to eventually push back the enemy and secure a stronger position for the empire. Had we acted impulsively, we might have lost much more than just battles. Finally, discipline in my personal conduct. Enduring such hardships required constant self-control. As emperor, it would have been easy for me to indulge in comforts or distance myself from the suffering around me, but I practiced the virtue of temperance, ensuring that I shared in the difficulties alongside my men. I ate the same rations, faced the same risks, and lived simply despite my rank. This was a conscious choice born out of discipline, a refusal to allow luxury to weaken my resolve or my sense of duty. Through this experience, I learned that discipline is not just about strict rules or routines. It is about cultivating inner strength and maintaining focus on what is within your control, even when the world around you is chaotic. Discipline kept me grounded in the face of hardship, and it allowed me to continue leading with purpose despite overwhelming obstacles. The plague eventually subsided and we secured peace, but it was not through luck or chance. It was through discipline in thought, action, and leadership that I was able to guide my people through that dark time. So, I ask you, in the face of your own hardships, can you find the strength within yourself to act with discipline, focusing on what you can control and enduring what you cannot? It is in this that true resilience lies. Quick interruption. To make sure you're taking action after watching this video, I've created a free guide to help you stop procrastination and take back control of your life. Most people, unfortunately, never make lasting change, and if you want to make sure you actually achieve your goals in life, then mastering self-discipline is crucial. Download the free guide by clicking the first link in the description box below. And if you're watching on TV, scan the QR code right here and I'll see you there.
Hearing your story really shocked me to my core. It truly puts things in perspective when so many of us today, in the modern world, complain about first world problems that seem meaningless relative to the struggles you and others have had to overcome. Reflecting on your hardship, are there daily techniques or practices you use to keep yourself grounded and disciplined that the people watching this could also use?
I'm deeply grateful that my story resonated with you. The struggles I faced were indeed immense, but hardship at any age is defined by the challenges we must personally endure. Though times have changed, the human condition remains much the same. We still wrestle with fear, discomfort, uncertainty, and the need to find meaning in our lives. Throughout my life, I developed daily practices to help me remain grounded, focused, and disciplined. These practices are not bound to the past, and can certainly be applied in the modern world to help people manage their struggles, however big or small. Let me share with you a few of these practices, which I believe can be of great help. 1. Morning reflection. Setting intentions for the day each morning. I began the day by reminding myself of the nature of the world and the people I would encounter. As I wrote in my meditations, begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. This practice can be applied today by taking a few quiet moments each morning to reflect on what lies ahead. Prepare yourself mentally for challenges you may face, whether it's dealing with difficult people, unexpected frustrations, or temptations that might distract you from your purpose. By setting your mind in advance, you won't be caught off guard by life's daily irritations. You'll meet them with calm, knowing they are part of the human experience. 2. Evening self-examination, a daily inventory. In the evening, I practice self-examination, reviewing the events of the day, my actions, and my thoughts. I would ask myself, have I lived in accordance with my values? Have I acted justly? Have I allowed fear or anger to cloud my judgment? For those today, this practice could take the form of journaling or simply reflecting before bed. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short of my own expectations or principles? How can I improve tomorrow? This kind of reflection helps cultivate self-awareness and promotes growth. It keeps you aligned with your goals, values, and purpose. Over time, it builds discipline because it encourages accountability to oneself. 3. Focusing on what you can control. One of the core Stoic principles that grounded me was to focus only on what is within my control. So much in life, whether in ancient times or today, is beyond our influence. Other people's actions, external events, fortune, or even death. But what you can control is your own mind, your thoughts, reactions, and the actions you take. I constantly reminded myself, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. For modern individuals, practicing this means letting go of worry about outcomes you cannot control. When you encounter a frustrating situation, pause and ask, is this within my control? If not, how can I best respond to it calmly? By consistently focusing on your own reactions and mindset, you'll find that external frustrations lose much of their power over you. 4. Practicing gratitude. Even in times of great hardship, I found it vital to remain grateful for what I had. In my meditations, I frequently thanked the gods for the teachers, family, and lessons I received, for the opportunities to live and act in accordance with virtue. Gratitude kept me grounded and reminded me of the many gifts I had been given, even amid difficulty. In today's world, it can be easy to overlook the things we should be grateful for, especially when focusing on what we lack. Taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you are thankful for, whether it's your health, family, opportunities, or even small comforts, can shift your mindset from one of complaint to one of contentment and abundance. This gratitude practice naturally leads to greater resilience. 5. Embracing discomfort and hardship as opportunities. Discipline also comes from the willingness to embrace hardship as an opportunity for growth. When I faced difficulties, I reminded myself that these were moments to practice virtues like patience, courage, and self-control. Every trial, whether personal or external, was a chance to become stronger. For people today, this might mean reframing discomforts like stress at work, personal setbacks, or physical challenges. Instead of seeing these as negatives, view them as opportunities to cultivate resilience. Ask yourself, what virtue can I practice in this situation? How can this hardship help me grow? 6. Simplicity and temperance. Living simply was another key to staying disciplined. I avoided unnecessary luxuries and pleasures that would distract me from my duties. I ate modestly, lived without excess, and remained focused on what truly mattered, my responsibilities to others and my personal development. In modern life, practicing temperance can be as simple as limiting indulgence in things like food, entertainment, or material possessions. These pleasures are not inherently bad, but they can easily become distractions. Practicing moderation in these areas will free you to focus on your purpose and the things that truly matter. 7. Mindful action, one task at a time. Another practice that helped me stay disciplined was focusing on one task at a time, with full presence. When performing a duty, whether leading an army or contemplating a decision, I reminded myself to do it fully, without rushing or being distracted by other thoughts. Today, it's easy to fall into the trap of multitasking or rushing from one thing to another. Instead, try to slow down and give your full attention to whatever you're doing, whether it's work, a conversation, or a personal project. Doing one thing well fosters discipline and a sense of purpose. These practices, morning reflection, evening self-examination, focusing on what's within your control, gratitude, embracing hardship, simplicity, and mindful action, can help you stay grounded and disciplined in today's complex world. They will guide you toward a life of purpose, resilience, and inner strength, no matter the external circumstances.
Moving forward, I'll make sure to use these practices in my everyday life, especially when things get hard, as they inevitably will, since that's just the natural course of life. Going back to what you said earlier, I may not be able to control certain outcomes of life, but I can control how I act and show up each day to overcome those struggles. So thank you for that insight. I would love to move on to your next daily virtue, which is justice. Why is justice so important for finding a deep sense of purpose in life?
I'm glad to hear that these practices resonated with you and that you're committed to applying them in your life. You're right, challenges will arise, but it is how you show up and respond to them that determines your growth and your path to purpose. Now, let us turn to justice, which is indeed central to living a life of meaning and virtue. Justice is essential for finding purpose because purpose is not only about personal fulfillment, It is about the role you play in the world and how your actions contribute to the well-being of others. A life of virtue is not lived in isolation. It is lived in service to others and to the common good. Justice demands responsibility and accountability. Living a just life requires that you take responsibility for your actions and their consequences. This means not only refraining from harm, but actively seeking to do good where you can. Justice is about more than avoiding wrongdoing. It is about stepping up to fulfill your duty to others, whether that means helping those in need, standing up for what is right, or using your talents for the benefit of society. Injustice often stems from neglect, indifference, or selfishness. A person who neglects their responsibilities to their family, friends, or community will inevitably feel disconnected and unfulfilled. Purpose requires responsibility. It is through fulfilling your duties and holding yourself accountable for your actions that you find meaning in your life. When you act justly, you align your life with your higher purpose. Taking responsibility and accountability isn't always easy, of course. One particular moment when my virtue of justice was severely tested occurred during the rebellion of Avidius Cassius, a trusted general who had been instrumental in the Parthian Wars. Cassius was an able military commander, but in the year 175 AD, he falsely believed I had died due to my declining health and declared himself emperor. This act of betrayal could have easily ignited a civil war within the Roman Empire, and the news of it reached me while I was still in the midst of the Marcomannic Wars in the north. The situation was dire. Cassius had considerable support in the eastern provinces, and many believed he would be a strong successor. His rebellion threatened the unity of the empire, and some of my advisors urged me to act swiftly and mercilessly to crush him and his followers. There was a temptation to respond with immediate force, to execute swift justice on those who had betrayed me, especially since the empire's stability and my authority were at stake. But here is where justice, and my commitment to it, was put to the ultimate test. I had to decide not only how to respond to Cassius, but also how to treat those who followed him out of fear or misplaced loyalty. It would have been easy to respond with vengeance, but justice is about acting fairly, even when you have the power to punish. Rather than act out of anger or self-preservation, I took time to reflect on the situation. I reminded myself that justice is not about personal retribution, but about serving the greater good. I could not allow my personal feelings of betrayal to cloud my judgment. Cassius, although a rebel, had once been a loyal servant of Rome, and I knew that many of those who followed him did so out of fear or misinformation, not malice. I decided that the path of justice required mercy, tempered with responsibility. When Cassius was assassinated by his own officers before I could reach him, many believed I would exact severe punishments on his supporters. Instead, I wrote a letter to the Senate, urging clemency for Cassius's family and for those who had been misled into supporting him. I did not allow the murder of Cassius to justify the widespread vengeance that some had expected. In my letter, I said, "I have prayed that no senator should be put to death, and that I may not lose any more of my friends." This was a direct reflection of my belief that true justice requires accountability without cruelty. I sought to heal the empire rather than deepen its wounds. Though I chose a path of mercy, this did not mean that I ignored the responsibility that came with being emperor. Justice demanded accountability, both from me and from those involved in the rebellion. I took responsibility for ensuring that those who had committed serious crimes were brought to justice, but without the indiscriminate brutality that would have fractured the empire further. Those who were guilty of acts of treason were dealt with appropriately, but I also made sure that those who were merely swept up in the rebellion were treated fairly. and spared. I recognized that I had a duty not only to punish wrongdoers, but also to preserve the peace and unity of the empire. A ruler must balance justice with compassion, and in doing so create an environment where the law serves the well-being of all, not just the ruler's personal interests. I knew that if I failed to show restraint, I would set a dangerous precedent for future rulers, one where power was maintained through fear and vengeance rather than justice and wisdom. By holding myself accountable to the higher standards of virtue, rather than succumbing to the easy path of retribution, I was able to prevent the empire from descending into a cycle of violence. I treated Cassius's death not as an opportunity for revenge, but as a chance to restore order and peace to Rome. This act of measured justice not only solidified my reputation as a fair and just ruler, but also brought stability back to the empire. The Senate and people recognized that I had placed the needs of the empire above personal vengeance, and this helped to unify the Roman provinces once again. The decision to act justly, even when I had every reason to respond with anger, allowed me to maintain the trust of the people and the integrity of the empire. In the end, the rebellion was quelled without excessive bloodshed, and the empire was spared further division. By remaining responsible and accountable for my actions, and by choosing justice over vengeance, I preserved both my honor and the stability of Rome. This experience taught me that justice requires both firmness and restraint. It is not about seeking revenge, but about ensuring that the actions you take serve the greater good, not just your own interests. When faced with betrayal or injustice, the temptation to react out of emotion can be strong, but true justice is about maintaining your principles, even in the face of personal wrongs. I learned that as a leader and as an individual, you must take responsibility not only for punishing wrongdoing, but also for fostering harmony and peace. Mercy, when applied with wisdom, is as much a part of justice as accountability. Through this experience, I strengthened my belief that justice is about serving the common good and ensuring that your actions bring about the greatest benefit for all, not just for yourself. For those today facing challenges, ask yourself, are my actions driven by fairness and responsibility, or by personal desires for revenge or retribution? How can I ensure that justice serves not just me, but the well-being of those around me? Justice requires courage, not only to hold others accountable, but also to hold yourself to the highest standard of virtue. By doing so, you will not only find your purpose, but you will help create a world where others can find theirs as well. How do you view justice in your own life? Are there challenges you face where this virtue could guide you?
I used to think there was a strong distinction between justice and mercy, but after hearing your story, perhaps I was blinded by the fact that they can actually be one and the same, and positioned in a way not just to benefit yourself, but others as well. I would say most people don't reflect on that enough and apply it properly, which is most likely why I believed they were two very different things. What guiding principles would you say people need to follow to ensure they're being merciful and just, to benefit the greater good versus one's own interest?
You're not alone in believing that justice and mercy are distinct, and many people struggle with the idea that they can indeed work together. In fact, justice without mercy can become harsh and punitive, while mercy without justice can lead to chaos and permissiveness. But when balanced correctly, they work in harmony to benefit not just the individual but the community, the greater good and the moral order of society. To ensure that one is being both merciful and just, I believe there are several guiding principles that can help. These principles help align personal actions with the greater good while keeping self-interest in check. Do not let ego dictate your actions. One of the greatest obstacles to being just and merciful is the ego. When we feel personally wronged, it can be tempting to seek revenge or punishment not out of a sense of justice, but to satisfy our wounded pride. Always ask, am I acting out of pride or a true sense of fairness? Would I make the same decision if my ego weren't involved? Justice requires humility, the willingness to set aside personal grievances in favor of what is right. Mercy, too, demands humility, for it asks that you place the needs of others above your own need for retribution. By putting ego aside, you are better able to serve the greater good, rather than acting out of a desire for personal vindication. Act with integrity and fairness. At the core of both justice and mercy is integrity. To be just, you must act fairly and impartially, ensuring that your decisions are not swayed by personal bias, emotions, or self-interest. True justice is blind to wealth, power, and status. It looks only at the facts and the truth of a situation. However, mercy should also be extended in the context of fairness. Being merciful doesn't mean ignoring wrongdoing, but understanding the broader context of human frailty. Ask yourself, what is the fairest course of action? Am I treating this person with the same understanding I would wish for myself? For example, as I did with the rebellion of Avidius Cassius, I had to consider whether a blanket punishment of all his supporters would truly serve justice, or whether mercy, carefully applied, would lead to a fairer outcome that restored unity to the empire. Third, temper judgment with compassion. Justice is about holding people accountable for their actions, but it must be tempered with compassion. All humans make mistakes, and understanding that no one is perfect allows for a more merciful approach. Before passing judgment, ask yourself, what are the circumstances that led to this action? Quick interruption. To make sure you're taking action after watching this video, I've created a free morning journal guide with 6 questions to ask yourself to help keep on track toward a life of purpose and meaning. Most people in life, unfortunately, get stuck in the rat race while they see their dreams and aspirations fade into dust. To make sure that doesn't happen to you, download the free guide by clicking the first link in the description box below, and if you're watching on TV, scan the QR code right here, and I'll see you there. Is this a pattern of harmful behavior or a single mistake that can be corrected? This is where mercy plays its role. It does not negate justice, but it acknowledges that sometimes people need understanding, guidance, and a second chance, rather than immediate punishment. Compassion allows you to see the person behind the action and to respond in a way that seeks their growth rather than their downfall.
I'm curious, we're skipping the third virtue of courage for now, and we'll come back to it, and rather I would like to talk about compassion. A lot of what you just talked about in the virtue of balancing mercy and justice sounds like compassion, but you intentionally split those virtues up. Why did you do that? And how is compassion different?
That's an insightful observation, and it's true that compassion overlaps with both mercy and justice, but they are distinct virtues, each serving its own role in guiding human behavior and ethical decision-making. The distinction lies in how each is applied and the depth of emotion and action associated with them. Allow me to explain why I separate these virtues and how compassion differs, while still playing an essential role in balancing justice and mercy. 1. Justice and mercy are principles of action. Compassion is an inner state. Justice is the virtue that ensures fairness, giving each person what they deserve, whether through reward or punishment. It operates on the principle of impartiality and equity. Mercy involves tempering justice with leniency or forgiveness in situations where harsh punishment would not serve the greater good. It's the application of kindness and understanding in the context of someone's failings or wrongdoings. However, compassion is something deeper. It is the emotional foundation that drives us to feel the suffering of others and motivates us to alleviate it. Compassion is the internal recognition of the shared human condition, where you feel a profound connection with another's pain, struggle, or misfortune. It is less about the intellectual balance of right and wrong and more about empathizing with the experience of others. Compassion, then, informs both justice and mercy, but is distinct in that it is rooted in the heart, not merely in the intellect. Justice and mercy are principles that guide how we act in the world, while compassion shapes our intentions and feelings toward others. 2. Compassion leads to action, not just reconciliation. One key distinction is that compassion often inspires positive action, even when no wrongdoing has occurred. It is a proactive virtue. When you feel compassion for someone, you are driven to help, uplift, and support them, not because they deserve it in a judicial sense, but because you recognize their suffering as your own. Justice and mercy are often about restoring balance after something has gone wrong. Compassion, however, can exist even when things are right. It moves you to act out of pure love for humanity, to alleviate suffering where you see it. For example, I showed justice and mercy in the case of Avidius Cassius' rebellion, balancing the need for order with forgiveness. But in many other cases, compassion led me to care for the sick, provide for the poor, or support those in grief, not because they had wronged anyone, but because their suffering moved me to act.
That makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. Understanding compassion is an internal state rather than an action or reaction to something that must be addressed is very powerful. Now, understanding compassion as an internal state, how can one develop compassion and harness that virtue in their everyday life to find purpose and meaning?
I'm glad that this understanding of compassion as an internal state resonates with you, and you're right. Recognizing it as such is indeed powerful. Compassion is not just a response to suffering or wrongdoing, but a deep, cultivated awareness of our shared humanity. When you develop and harness compassion, it becomes a guiding force in your life, offering you purpose and meaning by helping you connect with others and serve the greater good. Let's explore how one can develop compassion and integrate it into everyday life. 1. Cultivate self-compassion. Before you can fully extend compassion to others, it's important to start with yourself. Self-compassion means being kind and forgiving toward your own shortcomings, mistakes, and struggles. Many people are harsh critics of themselves, which can lead to feelings of unworthiness or isolation. However, you are as deserving of compassion as anyone else. Ask yourself, how do I treat myself when I make a mistake or face hardship? Do I judge myself more harshly than I would judge a friend in the same situation? To cultivate self-compassion, practice forgiveness for your own imperfections. When you make mistakes, respond with understanding and care rather than self-criticism. Acknowledge that suffering, failure, and imperfection are part of the shared human experience. You are not alone in your struggles. By being gentle and kind to yourself, you develop the emotional strength to be compassionate toward others. When you no longer harshly judge yourself, you are better equipped to extend kindness and understanding to those around you. 2. Embrace humility and set aside ego. Compassion requires humility, the recognition that you are no more important than others and that your needs are no greater than theirs. Often ego gets in the way of compassion because it makes us focus on our own desires, pride, or sense of superiority. Humility allows you to set aside the need to always be right or to win in conflicts. Put others' needs ahead of your own when necessary. Acknowledge your own vulnerability, which fosters deeper understanding of others' vulnerabilities. 3. Mindfulness, being present to others' needs. Mindfulness is a powerful practice that helps you become fully present in the moment. Often people are so preoccupied with their own thoughts, worries, or plans that they overlook the needs of others around them. Compassion begins by truly seeing the other person, understanding their emotions, pain, or joy without judgment. Mindfulness involves active listening. When someone is speaking to you, listen deeply without planning your response or thinking about other matters. Give your full attention to the person in front of you, observing without judgment. Notice the emotions of others, their body language, tone, and expressions. Often people express their needs silently through subtle cues. By being mindful, you can attune yourself to what others are feeling. This heightened awareness helps you cultivate compassion because you're more attuned to the suffering or joy of those around you. When you practice mindfulness, you open yourself to the present reality of others' lives, allowing compassion to flow naturally from a place of awareness. 4. Reflect daily on compassion. Developing compassion is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. One way to deepen your capacity for compassion is to reflect on it daily. At the end of each day, ask yourself, in what ways did I show compassion today? Were there moments where I missed an opportunity to be compassionate? Why? How can I be more compassionate tomorrow? This daily reflection allows you to build awareness around your actions and responses, making compassion a deliberate and conscious practice in your life. The more you reflect on it, the more it becomes second nature.
To be an emperor and focus so much on compassion is deeply inspiring. Was there a time in your life that someone was compassionate towards you that had an everlasting impact?
One moment of compassion shown to me that had a profound impact came from my beloved teacher and mentor, Junius Rusticus. He was more than a philosopher. He was my guide, a man who embodied Stoic virtues in the way he lived and taught. It was through his actions, particularly his deep compassion toward me during a moment of personal failure, that I began to truly understand the power of this virtue. As I was being groomed to lead the Roman Empire, I faced immense pressure from my teachers, the Senate, and the imperial court. The weight of expectations was crushing, and there were moments when I doubted my abilities to rise to the task. I recall a time early in my rule when I made a decision in haste, one that had unintended negative consequences. My judgment was clouded by the urgency of the situation, and the result led to unnecessary suffering for several Roman provinces. This failure weighed heavily on me, filling me with shame and self-reproach. At that time, I had internalized the principles of justice and duty, but had yet to fully grasp the importance of compassion, both for others and for myself. I felt that any mistake I made, any failure of leadership, was inexcusable, especially given the high stakes of ruling an empire. I became overly critical of myself and felt burdened by the weight of my shortcomings. Rusticus, noticing my inner turmoil, did something that surprised me. He did not criticize or lecture me as I had anticipated. Instead, he approached me with a quiet empathy, sensing that I was struggling not just with the consequences of the decision, but with my own internal battle. He said something that has stayed with me ever since. Marcus, a wise man is not one who never errs, but one who learns from his errors and seeks always to improve. You have judged yourself too harshly. The weight of the empire will often fall upon you, but never forget that you are human and all humans falter. What matters is that you rise again, stronger and wiser. Rusticus's words, and more importantly his compassion, changed me. In that moment I understood that compassion is not a sign of weakness but of strength. His gentleness toward me when I was drowning in self-criticism helped me see the value of extending compassion both to others and to myself. He showed me that no one, no matter how powerful or learned, should expect perfection. It is our humanity with all its imperfections that makes us capable of growth, wisdom, and ultimately leadership. Rusticus' act of compassion gave me permission to forgive myself, and in doing so, I began to see how important it was to lead with understanding and empathy toward others. His compassion not only helped me overcome my personal struggle, but also influenced the way I would govern in the years to come. I learned that true leadership is not about imposing perfection or harsh judgment on oneself or others. It is about acting justly while recognizing the shared struggles of all human beings. From that moment, I made it a point to remember that all people, even those who make mistakes, deserve understanding and a chance to grow. This lesson influenced my approach to ruling, especially when dealing with individuals who had failed in their duties or made errors in judgment. Instead of reacting with harsh punishment, I sought to understand the root causes of their failures and, when appropriate, showed mercy. Rusticus had taught me that compassion does not mean excusing faults, but rather recognizing that we are all striving, sometimes failing, and helping others to find their way forward, just as he had done for me. This experience left a lasting imprint on my life, both personally and as a ruler. It was a reminder that compassion is transformative. It can lift people out of despair, help them see their own worth, and guide them toward wisdom and purpose. When others show us compassion, especially when we are at our lowest, it gives us the strength to continue, to improve, and to contribute to the world around us. Rusticus's compassion not only saved me from being consumed by self-doubt, but also taught me the importance of leading with empathy. It became a cornerstone of my philosophy and my reign.
It's amazing how a small act of kindness and understanding can lead to such a massive impact on someone's life. An important reminder to myself to never take anything for granted and go out of my way to offer compassion to someone, no matter how small it may seem to me. I would like to talk about the final daily virtue you think people should practice, which is courage. A lot of people would assume that courage is, of course, a virtue to practice. And yet, I would argue most people don't achieve it, unfortunately, including myself a lot of the time. Why do you think people fail to be courageous? And how is that failure to be so ruining their life?
You've touched on a vital point. Courage is indeed a fundamental virtue, one that many aspire to but often find difficult to practice. It's easy to speak of courage in theory, but much harder to live it when faced with fear, uncertainty, or the risks involved. I believe people often fail to be courageous not because they lack strength or capability, but because of deeper, often unacknowledged obstacles that block their path to courage. These obstacles are fear, self-doubt, and the temptation of comfort over challenge. This is why people struggle to be courageous. Fear of failure or rejection. One of the most common reasons people struggle with courage is the fear of failure or rejection. The possibility of making mistakes, facing criticism, or disappointing others creates inner resistance. Many of us avoid taking risks because we are afraid of the consequences, be it embarrassment, loss of status, or falling short of our own expectations. Courage often demands stepping into the unknown, and it is in this space where fear can take hold. But without courage, we remain paralyzed by what might happen and fail to take the necessary action to grow, succeed, or stand up for what we believe in. In my time as emperor, I faced countless decisions that carried risks, both for me personally and for the entire Roman Empire. There were times when inaction or hesitancy could have preserved my safety, but at the cost of the empire's future. Courage does not eliminate fear. It allows you to act despite it. In failing to be courageous, we allow fear to dictate the course of our lives, trapping us in a state of inaction and regret. Attachment to comfort. The pursuit of comfort and ease is another reason people fail to practice courage. It is human nature to seek security and stability. Courage often asks us to step out of our comfort zone, endure hardship, or to face difficult truths about ourselves or the world. But many choose to remain in the familiar, even when they are dissatisfied or unhappy, because the unknown seems too daunting. Courage involves discomfort. It might require confronting our own limitations, speaking out against injustice, or making sacrifices for the greater good. People who shy away from discomfort often end up settling for less, missing out on opportunities for growth and meaning in their lives. This can be seen when people stay in unsatisfying jobs, relationships, or situations because the challenge of change feels too overwhelming. Comfort becomes a trap, and the failure to practice courage leads to stagnation and frustration. Failing to be courageous leads to missed opportunities, as fear prevents you from pursuing meaningful challenges or taking risks that could enrich your life. It fosters a life of inauthenticity, where you compromise your true self to avoid discomfort or rejection. This lack of courage results in stagnation, as you remain stuck in situations that don't allow for growth, leading to frustration. Over time, it breeds regret, as you look back on chances you didn't take and realize how much was lost. Lastly, failing to be courageous can cause a loss of integrity, where you sacrifice your values or fail to stand up for what's right, eroding your self-respect.
I'm curious, was there a time in your life when you weren't courageous because you were attached to fear and comfort? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yes, there was a time when I faced a deep internal struggle between fear and the demands of courage, a moment where I nearly allowed comfort and security to hold me back from taking bold action. It happened during the Marcomannic Wars, when the Roman Empire faced constant threats from barbarian tribes along the northern frontier. The conditions were harsh, the soldiers were exhausted, and there were calls from my advisors to return to Rome, where it would have been far more comfortable and safer for both myself and the empire's leadership. There was a strong temptation to retreat to the safety of the capital, where I could govern from a distance, surrounded by the comforts of the imperial palace. The prospect of staying at the front, enduring the harsh winter and the dangers of battle, filled me with doubt and fear. After all, I was an emperor and philosopher, not a hardened general, and the thought of continuing such a grueling campaign weighed heavily on me. The easier path was to return to Rome, to the comfort of my familiar surroundings. But I realized that my duty as emperor demanded more from me. If I returned to Rome out of fear or a desire for comfort, the soldiers would lose faith in my leadership, and the empire would appear weak to its enemies. The thought of abandoning my men and the empire's cause became unbearable. I chose to stay at the front, facing the same hardships as my soldiers. By overcoming the fear of discomfort and insecurity, I found the courage to lead by example, ensuring that Rome stood strong against its enemies. This decision taught me that true courage often means embracing discomfort and acting in the face of fear. The comfort of retreat would have been short-lived, but the courage to stay and fight for the greater good strengthened my resolve and the empire's defense. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in spite of it.
I can sense the inner turmoil from your story you must have been having at that point in your life. What were some of the negative thoughts running through your mind at that time, and how did you overcome them?
These thoughts weighed heavily on me, and I was tempted to retreat to the familiar comfort of the capital, where I would be shielded from the harsh conditions and constant threat of battle. However, I reminded myself of the Stoic principles that had guided me throughout my life. I thought deeply about duty and the nature of leadership. I told myself, Marcus, you are not here for your own comfort, but for the good of the empire. Your responsibility is to lead by example. If you choose the easier path, you betray not only your soldiers, but also the values you hold dear. I also reflected on the impermanence of life and the fleeting nature of fear. I asked myself, what is fear but a temporary emotion? What is comfort but an illusion that weakens resolve? I reminded myself that the worst outcome, death or failure, was beyond my control, but how I acted in the present moment was entirely within my power. In the face of uncertainty, I chose to focus on what was within my control, my actions, my decisions, and my integrity. By continually returning to these reflections, I was able to overcome the negative thoughts that urged me to retreat. I focused on the greater good, reminding myself that courage was not about the absence of fear, but about acting with purpose and virtue despite that fear. Each time doubt surfaced, I returned to the Stoic wisdom that guided me. Do what is right, even in the face of fear, and let go of the outcomes beyond your control. This inner dialogue, anchored in duty, reason, and Stoic philosophy, allowed me to stay the course and act with the courage required to lead the empire through those difficult times.
Thank you for sharing that. It seems that having a conversation with yourself and almost in a way, debating your thoughts was the way to overcome them. Are there practices or habits you think people should use in their life to overcome negative thoughts and eliminate fear?
Yes, you're exactly right. Engaging in an internal dialogue and challenging negative thoughts is a powerful way to overcome fear and doubt. This practice, rooted in Stoic philosophy, helps you gain clarity and separate emotion from reason. It's something anyone can do, and I believe there are several effective habits and practices people can adopt to overcome negative thoughts and eliminate fear. 1. Daily reflection or journaling. One of the most powerful practices I used, and something I recommend, is daily reflection. Each day, take time to reflect on your actions, thoughts, and feelings. In my own life, I would write down thoughts in what later became known as the meditations. This habit allows you to examine your fears and doubts from a distance, identify where your thoughts are driven by emotion rather than reason, reflect on how you responded to challenges and how you can improve. By writing down your thoughts, you gain perspective and can question the validity of your fears. Ask yourself, are these fears rational? Are they within my control? What actions can I take to confront them? This process helps to declutter your mind and focus on what is within your control. It's a habit that builds both self-awareness and mental resilience. 2. Challenge your thoughts through Socratic questioning. As you mentioned, debating your own thoughts is a powerful tool for overcoming negativity. This is known as Socratic questioning, a method of critically examining your thoughts through rational inquiry. When a negative or fearful thought arises, don't accept it at face value. Challenge it. Ask yourself, is this thought based on facts or assumptions? What is the worst that could happen? Could I handle it? Is this fear protecting me or holding me back? By asking these questions, you force yourself to break down irrational fears and see them for what they are, temporary emotions that often lack substance. This practice allows you to replace negative thoughts with rational, constructive ones. Visualize fear and overcome it. A powerful practice is to confront your fears mentally before they even arise in reality. In Stoicism, this is known as premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It involves visualizing the worst-case scenario so that you can mentally prepare for it. To practice this, imagine the fear or negative outcome you dread. Visualize yourself facing it calmly and with courage. Focus on how you would respond to the situation with your best virtues: wisdom, courage, and resilience. By visualizing the worst, you train your mind to accept and overcome it if it does happen. This reduces the power of fear because you've already mentally rehearsed how to deal with the situation. It turns the unknown into something you've prepared for, making it less intimidating. 4. Remember the impermanence of life. A cornerstone of Stoic philosophy is the understanding that life is temporary, and so are all of its challenges. Reflecting on the impermanence of life helps to put fear in perspective. When you realize that time is limited, you are less likely to let fear hold you back from pursuing meaningful actions. Ask yourself, will this fear matter a year from now? If life is short, do I want to spend it avoiding challenges or pursuing what matters? By remembering that life is fleeting, you can shift your focus from avoiding discomfort to making the most of your time. This mindset helps you break free from the paralysis of fear and encourages bold, courageous living. Incorporating these habits into your life, you'll find that fear loses its power, and you can move forward with clarity, purpose, and courage. These practices help train the mind to act with reason and resilience, even in the face of adversity.
Thank you for all your valuable wisdom and insights on what it truly means to live a purposeful and meaningful life. My final question to you is, if you had one more day left to live, how would you use it?
If I had but one more day to live, I would spend it in the same manner I have sought to live every day, with intentionality, gratitude, and virtue. I would begin by reflecting on the great gift of life and the many lessons it has taught me, focusing not on what is to come, but on the present moment. the only time truly within my control. I would dedicate time to those I love, offering them my attention and presence. In my final hours, I would ensure that my words and actions reflected the virtues I've always aspired to live by: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. I would seek to uplift those around me, whether through a kind word, guidance, or simply sharing in their company. I would take time to contemplate the nature of existence, embracing the impermanence of life and accepting that death is a natural part of the cycle. There would be no fear or regret, for I have striven to live in accordance with my values each day, knowing that life's purpose is found in the choices we make and the virtues we practice. My last day would be spent mindfully, without distractions, savoring each moment as it comes and leaving the world with a heart at peace. Ultimately, I would embrace the present, ensuring that my last acts reflected the kind of life I have always sought to live, one of integrity, compassion, and service to others. In that, I would find meaning, even in the final moments.
Thank you for watching. If you liked that video, I know you're going to love this video right here, and I'll see you there.
This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not necessarily express the views and opinions of the actual parties, and rather is inspired by them.